back out here. We've been here since that time.
So you were just born just not far from here.
That's 300 yards up there.
300 yards.
Yeah, my granddad bought this place in 1895.
Yeah.
It's been in the family since that time.
So when was this house built?
This was built in 1976.
I see.
Our daughter and her husband gave them an acre here to build. We lived up on the road on Dowling.
Right.
There. And so we decided we needed something a little bit smaller. It was getting too much grass to cut and everything.
Yeah.
And so then they approached us one day and they said, we want to move uptown. And would you be interested in our house? And they quoted us the price and we said, we'll take it.
Yeah.
So we've been here 15 years.
I'll be darned. How about that? Golly, this is wonderful. So you've, except for when you were in the service, I guess, you've been in College Station all your life, pretty much,
almost,
or thereabouts.
I worked at the depot, Southern City Depot, back in the early 50s.
Right.
And there was a job came open in Cameron as a freight agent up there. So I bid and got that job.
Right.
And so we were up there 9 years. And
Yeah.
then we moved back down here in '64.
Yeah.
Been here ever since.
Yeah. So you were born here in, it says here in 1923, and you went, you enrolled at A&M, and you were there and you entered the service in 44, late in 44, sort of late in the war, right?
Yeah, late in the war, right?
Yeah. Matter of fact, I think it said, your letter said that you were actually overseas 2 months before the war ended. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I was inducted in September of 44.
Right, right. Well, sort of talk about your service, about, when you went in and you, because you were running the farm and you were going to school, you got a sort of a delay in when you had to go, right?
Yes, I did. So when I was inducted, I went to Fort Sam.
Yeah, sure.
There. And because while I was in A&M, I was in the field artillery.
Right.
And there was one other person down there that had been in for a year. Earlier had served a year, was in the field artillery. And so we were the only two out of that big group that went to artillery training. And so we went to Fort Bragg,
North Carolina.
Got our training there. First 7 weeks was training on a 105 howitzer.
Yeah.
And then the next 10 weeks I was trained as a telephone field lineman. And so during that time, we climbed poles, took telephones apart, and all stuff like this,
Right.
And that's what eventually I got in. After I got overseas, I got in the wire, we call it the wire section of the 105 firing.
You know Sonny Franzi?
Pardon?
Do you know Sonny Franzi from Bryan? He's a World War II veteran who did the same thing. He was in communications and laid telephone wires.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
In Europe, he did that during the Battle of the Bulge. I guess he was there a little bit earlier than you were.
Yeah.
But that was his things too. His name is Sonny Franzi. He's still with us. He lives in Bryan, so I don't know whether you knew him or not. So that was you were a telephone linesman.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. What did that involve? When you were in Europe?
Okay,
I mean, that was communications, right?
Yeah, it was that was the only communications.
Exactly. Yeah.
Of course, I guess I started to say before the radio, but we had radios. Our foreign observers had radios, but to get tapped in and find out what's going on, you almost had to have just a telephone service,
Right.
So what normally we did. The last part of the war there, we moved up after we crossed the Rhine. We moved up we moved just about every day. Moved up just about every day. But usually the battery commander and his driver and the sergeant that was in charge of the howitzers would go up on reconnaissance, and the wire section would go up with them. The wire corporal and 2 linemen would go up, get with the infantry to see where their next push was going to be.
Right.
And then we'd be assigned a place to put our howitzers so that we would be in support, if they had problems. And so that's pretty well took place every day.
Right.
Just about every day we moved up like that. So when we got up there, we dug in our switchboard, or either found a barn or an old house or someplace to put it, and so we could keep it out of the wet,
Sure.
If it rained. And so we would just string the wire off the back of the truck down to the gun position and to the battery commander's command post, and then back to headquarters.
Right.
And then we'd hook the phones up, and we were ready whenever the rest of the battery came in. They could unload ammunition and be firing in 15 minutes,
Wow.
if necessary,
Did it always work the way it was supposed to?
Yeah, it pretty well did.
Pretty much did,
Yeah, we
huh?
pretty well had the same plan to everything we did, and there was, I don't remember any time that didn't work like
I'm
that.
talking about the communication. In other words, they could pick up I mean, they could
Well,
they could pick up a line and
yeah.
and they'd be talking.
We had, sometimes the telephones were out, and
Yeah.
we'd go out on find where the problem was.
Right. Right.
It'd be something was a tank had run over across the road or something like that. Normally when there was a road crossing, we went up, tied off, went across, overhead,
Yeah.
and then whenever we were ready to move up again, we left everything just like it was.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, there's lots of wire left on the ground, I'll tell you, over there in Germany.
I'll
for
bet,
sure.
because you didn't pick it up and take it with you.
No, we didn't pick
You
it
just
up.
used new equipment.
Yeah.
As you moved on, you didn't have time to do that.
Well, there was a time. The time element would have been greater than stringing it out to start with.
Sure. Right.
It would have been a lot of problems trying to pick it up.
Right.
I'm sure someone that was signed in that area probably went back and picked it up for scrap or something like that. Just to get it off the ground.
Right.
Looks like after the war was over.
Right. I want to rewind back to when you went overseas to Glasgow. Is that right, from New York?
Uh-huh.
What kind of trip was that? Was that on an ocean liner, or was that a
Yes.
converted ocean liner?
That was in Queen Elizabeth.
All right. Yeah.
And we
Careful.
boarded there, of course, in New York, and it took us 6 days to go over. And of course, we were faster than any escort vessel, so we
Sure.
went alone.
Right.
But of course, the story that they told us that probably has some truth in it, but they changed courses every 5 minutes.
Right. It
This would
zigzag.
not give us a sub
Yeah.
a chance to get a fix on it,
Sure. Sure. Sort of a zigzag type of thing. Yeah.
And so, it's true enough, we did check it out one time, and looking back where we'd been, there was this zigzag path,
Yeah. So how long did the trip take?
It took 6 days,
6 days.
and it was the weather, as I remember, was very nice. In
Yeah.
fact, it was, as you see on the picture there, I think it was built for 2,300 some odd passengers,
Right.
and there was 22,000 of us put on that
22,000.
22,000. And so half of us slept down below during the day,
Uh-huh.
and the other half slept up on the deck.
So there were 10 times as many passengers
Oh,
as
yeah.
it was built for.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, of course, it was the worst part about it was going to chow.
Yeah.
Going down those long stairs, going down, down, down. Everybody, some was getting sick. There's no place to go, except right there on the stairs. And
Right.
so it was slick, and and the time you got down there, you weren't hungry anyway. So I just stayed up on deck.
I'll bet you're right. So in those 2 months before the war ended, was your unit involved in any resistance? I mean, as far as were there some scary moments?
Well, Yeah, we got shelled
Yeah.
quite often at night.
Right.
I don't recall ever being shelled in the daytime,
Right.
but we got shelled at night. And one thing I particularly remember was Bed Check Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
This was a light plane, German plane that flew over at night, dark nights. They flew slow and low and so forth, looking for a glimmer of light somewhere, so they called the artillery down on us,
Mm-hmm.
And so now that's the only thing I brought home with me, and I still have. When, of course, the airport's just 2 miles over here.
Right.
Anytime I hear at night a plane is flying slow and low,
Mm-hmm.
I get cold chills in my.
Yeah.
Before I know it, I've got cold chills.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's something that you brought back with you.
Brought back with it. Only,
Yeah.
thank goodness that was the only thing.
Yeah. That brings back memories of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to turn out all the lights in the house and make sure you're not giving up anything. So talk about, after the war was over, talk about the occupation. And obviously one of the most fascinating parts of your letter was, having been in Hirschbruck, near Nuremberg, and you were where they kept the witnesses for the Nuremberg trials.
Yeah. We did the guard duty
Mhm.
there, and we were there, I think, from probably November until I came home in April.
I see. From November of 45
45
to April of 46.
April 46, yeah.
Right. So did you? I guess these witnesses were kept isolated, or did you?
I'm not sure. The only thing that I know that we were in the guard towers. That's about the only contact that I had. Well, only contact that I ever had close up. I had to go. They fall in ranks, and if there's anybody missing in a rank, well, they would determine real quickly who they were, and so I had to walk down and walk between the ranks
Mm-hmm.
to see that everybody was in place. There was no vacant places there. And that gave me a eerie feeling. I tell you, being in there. Of course, if you think about it, they weren't soldiers; they were civilians.
Right.
And so thinking about it now, but it didn't help at all then.
Right. What were some of the other, interesting things that happened to you during your service and during the occupation? What?
During let's see, soon after the ending of the war, probably 3 weeks or a month, they notified us from headquarters that they needed 3 men in a jeep to be up in Bamberg. I think that was division headquarters
Mm-hmm.
at the time. To be in Bamberg the next morning.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was one of the ones that was chosen to go. And so we got up there. Well, boy, the town was just filled with GIs, So we had a meeting set up to be in with the Burgermeister City Hall at 10 o'clock that morning.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we had a house full of GIs there, had no idea what was going on. And so the only thing it told us was that this is a top secret mission. And it says when you leave this place, you're not even to discuss it among yourselves.
Now, when was this?
This was about a month after the war was over.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And it said, you're not even to discuss it among yourselves, because if somebody picks up a word here and there and puts them together, they might know what's coming up. And it says that at 6 o'clock we're going to give you a name and address, and at 6 o'clock the next morning you're going to pick up an individual there and bring them back here.
Mm-hmm.
And said that suggested that during the day we go out that area, find the house, so we know where we're going the next morning, because 6 o'clock it was just breaking day.
Right.
And so that's where we were there at 6 o'clock next morning, knocking on the front door. We sent one of the guys around to the back door,
Mm-hmm.
covered back there. the lady at the house came to the door, and we said, and now when I tell the story, I use the word Herr Schmidt. I don't remember what his name was, but I called him Herr Schmidt, and said, we need to see Herr Schmidt. And she said, come in. And so we went in the living room, and so she went, got him, he was in the bedroom, came out putting his robe on, and so we told him that you will get your clothes on and you will go with us. And he says, y'all go. So he went back to dress. Well, of course, his wife and had two little girls. This is the hardest thing that I think I've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
But they had two little girls, probably, one of them was 6 and one was probably 7 or 8. And they began asking questions, where is he going? When will he be back? All of this stuff, just tear you up, And they were crying and everything,
Questions you didn't know the answer to.
Well, that's the only thing you say. We don't know.
Right.
We don't know, and we didn't know anything.
You were just told to go pick up this
man.
man.
We were just supposed to pick this fellow up.
Mm-hmm.
Have no idea who he was, why we were picking him up, what job he had, or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, we picked him up and carried him down and turned him into the burgomaster's office there. And probably he wound up out at Hirschbrook, very likely. Could have, But
as a witness, you mean?
As a witness,
right.
Possibly. But this pickup was all over Germany.
Yeah.
6 o'clock that morning, all over Germany. That's why it was
picking up different people.
Different people, yeah.
And how many of you were in this? About
there was
three
just
of you?
3 in our group.
3 in your group
And
to pick up Herr
Schmidt.
Schmidt.
3.
Right.
Yeah.
But this was all over Germany.
All over Germany. And of course, I don't suppose that this was. I think they would have rounded the Nazis up before this time, maybe.
Right.
And so it's probably people that worked in the offices, maybe. I'm not.
Now, was this Herr Schmidt? Was he a civilian?
Yes.
He was a civilian. Yeah.
At least he was in.
Right.
Civilian clothes.
So you never found out what happened to him or anything. You delivered him back and never.
One other incident that occurred at Nundettelsau was the first location that we went to after the ending of the war.
Mm-hmm.
We stayed in a 2-story castle. It was a castle of sort, and it had one long wing on it. And this wing was just about like a gymnasium,
Mm-hmm.
and it was shelves all the way to the ceiling. It must have been 12-foot ceilings, and just shelves after shelves after shelves, documents. No telling what all was in there. And every day we went over to the closest compound and picked up some workers, to work around the place, and had a guard that followed them around and so forth. Well, after one of these days, about 8 o'clock that night, somebody hollered fire. Well, that whole wing was on fire back there. All those records went up in smoke.
Mm.
Don't tell me what, But, of course, there's no doubt that one of the prisoners, knew what it was and struck a match back there or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, they lost all of that. But
Wow. So some interesting stories. So you were discharged in 46 and came home?
46, yes. I discharged in
May of 46?
May of 46, yeah.
That's right.
One other interesting thing that happened, we went from Nundettelsau to, I have senior moments.
That's okay.
So that's why I have to make a lot of notes sometimes.
That's okay.
At Schaffenburg, we went to Schaffenburg, next place, and there we were guarding a SS hospital. It was I guess 3-story hospital, and so we were putting guard duty there, and so I was corporal of the guard. I had 4 guards, one at each end door, and one at the back, and one at the front door. And I don't remember whether it was the first night that we were there, but it was. I was in the office and had a loud knock at the door, and so I said, "Come in." The door flew open, and there stood one of the SS troopers, just in a pair of shorts, barefooted, with a knife in his hand, and he had slashed himself on his head, forehead, cheeks, neck, shoulders, arms, and he was just oozing, all over. Just, boy, I whipped out my .45. I said, "You get out of here, I'll shoot." He said, "Sheeson." So I figured out he tried a job and he couldn't do it. He wanted some help, So the only thing that came to mind, I remember that there was a little cot there in the room, and there was a blanket folded up there. And so I reached down and picked that blanket up, and I thought, if I can throw that over his head, I might be able to take that knife away from him.
Mm-hmm.
And so he charged me, and when he did, I threw the blanket up, and he jumped back. Did the second time the same thing. Well, the third time he charged, and I did that. He grabbed the blanket and jerked it out of my hand.
Mm-hmm.
And so I fired twice.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them got him right in the hip. In fact, it broke this big bone in his leg.
Mm-hmm.
And he just slowly settled to the floor. Still had that knife going just like that. And so those old hospitals had a little window that they conducted the business out from the foyer out there, Well, I pushed that thing, pushed it up and dived out head first. And then I got the sergeant of the guard, and so he said, "We're just going back down to the office, and as soon as I get my clothes on, I'll be down there." Well, when I got back down there, there were 6 orderlies that was in there, had taken the knife away from him, and they were trying to tie him down on a cot.
Mm-hmm.
And it took all 6 of them, I'll tell you, to handle him.
Wow.
And so anyway, they carried him off, and about an hour later, the doctor came by and brought me the slug he took out of him.
Yeah.
But he was loony as a bat.
Yeah. But he didn't die. I mean, they mended him up, and
I didn't hear anything after that, but they took the bullet out, and
wow. So you won that battle. That was your battle of World War II right there. That was your one-on-one.
The officer of the guard came by a little bit later and said, he wanted to know what happened.
Yeah.
I told him, and he said, "Well, we reported to headquarters and said somebody from headquarters would be over to talk to you."
That's right.
Well, I've been waiting 62 years. No one showed up yet. I don't think they're coming.
They must have been satisfied with the
I guess
with
so.
the explanation. Goodness
Probably
gracious.
knowing who it was.
Right. Wow. It's amazing. Anything else? I mean, that really stands out?
We had one other incident before the war was over. We probably about a week after I got over there, we became lost one afternoon. We were moving up, kept moving up and stopping, moving up. Started the whole battery. Probably about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and so at night we were still doing the same thing. And of course, the only thing we had was those little blackout lights on the vehicles, and we could just see somebody that's ahead of you. But anyway, the chief of the wire section, we were stopped, and so somebody came by and said, "Hey, the colonel wants to see all the chief, the section chiefs up front." And so he went on up there and came back about an hour and said that they think we're lost. That we're probably behind German lines.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is we don't know whether they willingly let us through or whether we got through not being detected or something. And anyway, said anyway we're gonna pull off here and make a park the vehicles in a circle, and we're going to put up guards all around the perimeters, you know, during the night. And so we never did find out what happened, but we left out early the next morning.
Right. Yeah. You get that?
Let me just look.
Yeah. Go ahead. Tell them, Margaret. Yeah.
So then, when we moved on up in a northern direction, up by the Ruhr sector, we helped close the gap on around the whole sector there. I think the British was on the west side. We were on the east side. But anyway, we closed the gap on them. We took 325,000 prisoners, the whole Fifth Army.
Right.
And so we were sent on into the interior. Found a little a village that had maybe half a dozen houses.
Right.
And so we settled in there, and our orders were to clean up, took a bath, wash our clothes. It had been over 30 days since we'd had a bath, you know. So we were needing some water. So we wash our clothes and work on the vehicles and stuff like that, you know. We were going to be offline 3 or 4 days. In fact, we were being transferred from General Hodge's 1st Army to Patton's 3rd Army. You know, and so we were, when we left there, we would be going with Patton and his group, you know. And so the next morning, we were going back, getting things cleaned up, and our driver for our weapons carrier caught an old horse out in the patch out there, made a hackamore put on him and ride him up and down the road, you know.
Yeah.
Well, about the middle of the morning, he came galloping back there just as fast as that old horse could run, hollering, "There's Jerry's in the woods, there's Jerry's in the woods." So there's about half a dozen of us got our carbines, and we followed him on back up the road and went in the woods, and heard someone holler, "Come out with your hands up," you know. And so we ran on over there, and so we had 6 prisoners. So we brought them on back down to the compound, and Lieutenant Story was the executive officer. He came out, saluted the officer that was with him, took him inside. Then about 20 minutes, the colonel's command car drove up, and Lieutenant Story and the German got in the command car, head back to headquarters. So we put the other guys in the truck, sent them on with them. Well, then we found out later that afternoon that we just captured the commanding general of the Fifth Army.
Oh my goodness!
Now, Walter Modell was the. In fact, Walter Modell had he was the commander in chief. He had issued the decree that there would be no surrender. They were going to fight to the death. And that could have been a lot of people.
Sure.
But he went out and put a bullet through his head a few days before, and so he was out of the way. And I guess the one that we got was a little softer, you know, and he was ready to get out of all that. And so, but as when we was approaching the area, going back into the interior, we met convoys of prisoners coming out. And I expect there was, the length probably was 10 to 15 miles, I guess. It looked like about 20, 25 prisoners each truck. And the ironic thing about it was the lead vehicle was a Jeep with an officer and a driver and a machine gunner. 15 miles back, there was another, Jeep. He had a machine gun, and they were guarding all those prisoners. You know. But those guys didn't want to go anywhere.
Right.
They wanted the thing to be over with, and they didn't pay their dues or whatever it was, and get back home, get back home alive.
Yeah.
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 And
wow. I've got in your letter what what your career was after you discharged. You and Dorothy got married in July of '46, and you have grandchildren. You have children, and how many children do you all have?
I have two daughters.
Two daughters.
Yeah, in fact, that's
them right there.
Back there, yeah.
Yeah.
And I have have 5 grandchildren.
Right.
And 10 greats.
10 great grandchildren. My goodness. Now, where do your daughters live?
Locke, she's the younger. She has the USA Office Supply out there on the bypass.
Right, on the bypass. Yeah.
She's have interest in that.
I see.
And Terry is a school teacher over in Lakey, Texas.
Okay.
And her husband is a superintendent.
I see.
And they're looking at 2 more years. They're going to retire.
And then they're going to retire.
Yeah, I can't believe it. Here I am still working, and my daughter's 6 to retire.
Oh, that's good. Tell me about the work you do that you're doing now. That your volunteer work. You get paid for it.
No, this is I work for A&M.
Yeah, yeah.
This is geochemical and environmental research.
I see here. Okay.
And we're located out on Graham Road.
Right.
And I'm glad to be off campus. That's the man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I understand.
So what are you doing?
Well, I work in a lab.
Uh-huh.
A lab technician, and I went to work in there. Well, I retired from the power line company in 1988, and Jim Brooks, who was the director of the of GERG, as we call it. He lives just across the street over there, been a neighbor of mine. So I went over and told Jim, I said, I've retired and I've been off about 3 years. I said, I'm ready to go back to work. You got anything? And he said, well, not right now, but if something comes up, I'll call you. So in about 2 months, he called me and he says, you ready to go to work? And I says, you bet. He says, well, be there in the morning. So I was there 10 years full time.
Right.
And then we had a layoff, and there was 8 of us was laid off, and then I think about 10 months later they called me back on halftime. And so I've been working 4 years halftime.
Halftime. That's what you're doing now.
Yeah. Work Monday and Tuesday and half day Wednesday.
And half day Wednesday.
And good people to work with.
Yeah.
It's anything is. In fact, I've even done some. Well, this shouldn't be told, but I've done some work the month before, so I can have a couple more days off next month to go up to Wichita to see my lady friend up there.
I see. So you got a friend in Wichita?
Yeah.
Good.
We've been seeing each other for about 5 years.
Is that right? Okay.
So I usually go up every couple of months and
wonderful.
A few days. It's nice,
In Wichita, Kansas?
Yes.
I see. Do you drive up there?
Well, I've driven several times, but I have a grandson that gets a ticket for me, and every time he gets the ticket, it's a little bit cheaper than it was the time before.
Yeah.
And so I got me flying out of A&M.
Yeah.
Now I did drive to Houston,
Yeah.
out of there, but we got a flight out of A&M. It goes to DFW and then change up there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it makes a very nice trip.
Yeah, well, that's great. Well, tell me about this the 60th anniversary of VE Day, when you and several other veterans took the trip.
Okay.
Talk about that.
We flew into Frankfurt,
and
then we went to Monschau, which was the hotel that we were going to be in. I think we stayed over there three or four nights, and then on the next day, which was VE Day, we went to
Remagen?
Remagen.
Yeah.
Yeah, Remagen.
Yeah.
And so we were guests of the city government, and I don't know why I should be surprised, but I was surprised that here those Germans were celebrating VE Day,
Right.
But they had they had this big celebration, and they had city chambers was full of people, and they had a lot of speakers. Of course, I didn't understand anything they were saying.
Yeah.
But we had one person that spoke for us, but we had we were guests for lunch, and we went to we went over to the abutment of the bridge of Ludendorff Bridge there, but it started raining, so we had to rush back to the to shelter, and we had gotten word that the neo-Nazis were going to demonstrate that afternoon. And we were leaving. We had announced the fact that we were leaving town at 2 o'clock. So we decided we had better get out of town at 1 o'clock. And so we loaded up and we were going at 1 o'clock. And as we went out of town, all the roadside parks all along the way was full of those guys.
Right.
But there was a policeman with every single one of them.
Wow.
Yeah. We were well protected.
Yeah.
So I had no idea what they were going to do in that demonstration, but you know.
Well, I guess the celebration is, from the German standpoint, is celebrating no longer being under Nazi rule.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. The end of the war meant the end of Hitler and Nazi rule, but there were still Hitler sympathizers that had something to say.
But it's still, I had never just really realized that until that particular time. I can't imagine those people celebrating losing the war.
Yeah.
But they were tired. They were tired of it.
Now the 99th Division, you were a member of the 99th Division, is that right?
Yes.
And were you a member of the division which had helped to liberate Robingen?
Yeah.
Okay.
The 99th was there, along with I think the 65th, and in fact the 99th was the only division that crossed on the Ludendorff Bridge before it went down. There was some parts of other divisions that got across, but we in the total 99th that got across there. And I was talking to, when on our tour, I was talking to one of the people there, and he had been over, and he had to come back into Remagen for some reason. I don't think he said why, but of course they're using pontoon bridges. Had one going east and one going west, and so he came back across, and as he started back to cross again, he noticed it looked like the bridge was moving. So he stopped, and see that thing just slowly went down until it went into the water, you know. And it was, we lost 27 people that was on it and couldn't get off.
Yeah. Wow.
And of course the bridge was wired to so they could, it could be, well, in fact when it was built, it was wired for destruction, if so need to be. And when they threw the switch, it didn't work. And so they put some people on it, I understand, from the German side, to find out what the problem was. Well, still they didn't find the problem, and so of course they were the Germans had retreated across, and they were dive bombers and howitzers, that they were shelling the thing coming and going, trying to get it down before we could get across.
Right.
But we got across and got a foothold over there.
Right. But you went on some battlefield tours and visited battlefields?
Yes, we went.
Must have been quite a trip.
Yeah, it was. It was a very nice trip. And we have, there was, back when we were up close to Elsendorf Ridge. That's where most of the Battle of the Bulge, as far as we were concerned, was fought. And of course, some of the guys went back into the towns when they were off duty. Went back into the towns for the first month. There was not a lot going on. They send a patrol out, and shoot a few shots, and the Germans would run back. And we'd come back, and so wasn't much going on. And so some of the guys went back into the towns, and some of the people were very gracious. And the Belgian people are still very gracious.
Right.
people. And so anyway, there was a couple of guys that were teenagers at that time. Well, then they were close to the soldiers, and after the war was over, they did a lot of going out in the Ardennes forest and for looking for souvenirs, you know.
Yeah.
So they found hand grenades, and they found rifles and this, that, and so forth. And then these two guys grew up and had children of their own. Well, their children kind of picked up on the same thing too. Well, there's a couple of them had for the last 15 years has been spending all of their spare time looking for MIAs.
Mm-hmm.
They have, we look, let's see, the 99th had 20. I had 33 MIAs when the
Right.
war was over.
Yeah.
They found 15 of them
I see.
over years and years
Yeah.
and years. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they found one last year.
Mm-hmm.
And so these two guys that they spent their time, they spent 2 days with us there on the some of the battlefields and so
Right.
forth, and explaining how they found these people and so forth. You know.
Right. Was the weather still pretty cold when you crossed the Rhine? I mean, I always hear
yes,
about
it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It was still pretty cold. In fact, until we got up. Let's see. This was
in March.
About March 15th, I think, when I got with the outfit. Up till the 1st of May, up to the 1st of May, it was still pretty cool.
Yeah.
But then it began to warm up
Right.
pretty good.
Yeah.
And we got, I was telling you though about, we had orders to clean up, wash our clothes and so forth. We washed our clothes, we got a bucket of gasoline and chugged those ODs up in them, you know, until we got them clean and hung them out. I don't know what it would be like today to try to put on a pair of woolen
Olive drabs, yeah.
yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And try to wear it. But anyway, that's what we did. We got it cleaned up pretty good shape.
I bet you did. Well, this is a fascinating story. It really is. Have you got some pictures there?
Well-
Or you got, show me what you got.
Yeah, let's see.
It takes 28 and a half minutes, and I'll just sort of lead the conversation, and you talk, and we'll show some pictures.
Sounds great.
And it's pretty easy work and all that. So,
To me, the best show, I think you showed it twice, with Dr. Alexander.
yeah, with his pictures.
With his pictures.
Yeah,
That was fantastic.
yeah.
It was.
I need to do another one with him with some updated pictures,
Yeah.
because I go and visit. I go do my weight training right next door to his office at that Super Slow, which is right. That weight training, I do my weight training right next door to his office over here. And so whenever I go over there once a week, I'll go in and look and see if he's got any new pictures on the wall. Yeah, because his whole wall is covered with those computer generated photographs that he does. Yeah. I need to do another show with him because he's probably got all updated stuff. Yeah, that's good. Well, thank you for your service and thank you for the letter, and I appreciate it. This is how I find out about people. And we'll see you on Thursday. I'll be there about 2:15.
Okay, I will be there.
Okay.
Would it be appropriate for me to wear my honor guard
Yes, sir.
uniform?
I hope you will.
Would it be proper to plug it a little bit? You know?
Absolutely.
You know, some
For the American Legion?
American Legion.
Yeah, right.
Some veterans might not know that
You provide the honor guard. Yeah.
honor guard services, whether they belong to a service
Oh, yeah.
organization or not.
Yeah. No, we've had David Marion on several times, and he's talked about it.
Yeah.
Because David will talk about it. He'll talk.
He just went out as commander.
Did he just go out?
Yesterday, yeah.
Okay. But I bet he's really involved, though, is all.
He's so different.
He is very, very much so. He's very, very dedicated. Yeah, I enjoyed, I've done a couple of shows with him. I really did. He was a good Vietnam vet.